This happened back in 2008. I was 8 years old, spending the night at my grandmother's house. It was one of those old, cozy houses where every floorboard creaks and the shadows play tricks on you. My grandma had already gone to bed, leaving me on the couch in the living room, bathed in the flickering blue light of the late-night TV. The layout was simple. From the couch I had a clear view down a short hallway to the bathroom. The door was cracked open just a little, a dark sliver in the wall. As I was watching some old movie, something caught my eye. In that dark gap of the bathroom doorway, a piece of white cloth was swaying. It looked like a towel, just gently moving back and forth, almost like it was caught in a breeze. But all the windows were closed, there was no draft. I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was just my eyes playing tricks on me in the dark. I focused back on the TV, but my attention kept getting pulled back to that doorway. Every time I glanced over, it was still there, swaying. After what felt like an eternity, the gentle, rhythmic movement started to feel less like a random draft and more deliberate. It was unnerving. My 8-year-old curiosity got the better of my fear. I muted the TV, plunging the room into near silence, except for the low hum of the refrigerator. I slid off the couch, my bare feet cold on the wooden floor. I crept towards the hallway, my heart pounding in my ears. Each step felt like a drumbeat as I got closer. I peeked through the crack in the door. The white cloth was gone, but what I saw instead is burned into my memory forever. Standing just inside the bathroom, illuminated by the faint light from the living room, was a foot. Just a single foot. It was black, not like skin color, but like charcoal or burnt wood. The skin was dry and deeply cracked, like a dried-up riverbed. It was just standing there, motionless, on the tiled floor. There was no leg attached, no body, nothing. Just this grotesque, solitary foot. A wave of pure terror washed over me. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. It felt like my lungs had collapsed. I stumbled backward, away from the door, my mind reeling, trying to make sense of what I had just seen. I ran to my grandmother's room and shook her awake, whispering frantically about the foot in the bathroom. She was groggy and mumbled something about me having a nightmare, that my imagination was running wild. She told me to go back to sleep and rolled over. Defeated and more scared than ever, I went back to the living room. I didn't dare look toward the bathroom again. I pulled the blanket up to my chin and laid down on the couch, facing the back of it. As I lay there, rigid with fear, I saw something else. A dark shape, a shadow, was moving across the ceiling above me. It wasn't a normal shadow from a car's headlights outside. This one was inside, and it was crawling. It moved slowly, deliberately, from one end of the ceiling to the other, like a giant, distorted spider. I squeezed my eyes shut and pretended to be asleep, my heart hammering against my ribs. I stayed like that, feigning sleep, until the first rays of morning light filtered through the curtains. The moment the sun was up, I bolted out of my blanket. I cautiously approached the bathroom and pushed the door wide open. It was completely empty. The floor was clean. There was no black foot. There wasn't even a white towel hanging anywhere. It was just a normal, empty bathroom. I never told my grandmother what I saw on the ceiling. I didn't think she would have believed me anyway. I'm an adult now, and I've tried to rationalize it over the years. Was it a sleep-deprived hallucination? A waking dream? Maybe, but it felt so real. The image of that dry, cracked foot and the shadow crawling above me. It's a memory that has never faded. It's a chilling reminder that sometimes there are things in the dark that we just can't explain. I've shared this story with a few close friends, and most of them get goosebumps just listening to it. It's funny how a single night from your childhood can stick with you so vividly, shaping your perception of the world, making you question what's real and what's not. That house held a lot of happy memories for me, but it also holds that one dark, inexplicable secret. Every time I think about it, I get that same cold knot of fear in my stomach. I wonder if anyone else has ever experienced something similar, that feeling of seeing something so impossible, so out of place, that it shakes you to your core. The world is a strange place, and maybe some doors are better left unopened. Thanks for listening to my story. If you have any similar experiences, I'd be fascinated to hear them. Stay safe, and maybe keep a light on tonight. My friend Pamela shared a story with me that still sends a shiver down my spine. It's about her dad and the house they lived in back in Idaho. Now her dad has had strange experiences his whole life, and encounters with things he just can't explain. But what happened in that Idaho house was different. It was terrifying. He always slept with the lights on, a habit he picked up after they moved in. He never said why, but looking back, it's pretty clear he sensed something was wrong with that place from the very beginning. One night as he was drifting off to sleep, he felt something grab his foot. It wasn't a quick touch. It was a slow, deliberate grasp, followed by something stroking its hand up his leg, all under the covers. The touch was cold, unnatural, and it woke him up instantly. But he was paralyzed by fear. He lay there, frozen, his heart pounding in his chest, too scared to even open his eyes and see what was touching him. Every instinct screamed at him not to look, to just pretend he was still asleep. But the feeling continued, this methodical stroking, and he knew he couldn't ignore it. Finally, mustering every ounce of courage he had, he slowly opened his eyes, and what he saw wasn't a hand. Sitting right on his chest was a cat, but this was no ordinary cat. It was pure black, and its face was twisted into a look of pure malice, something utterly evil. Its eyes were locked onto his, glowing with a terrifying intensity. It just sat there staring him down, not moving a muscle. He was trapped, pinned down by this creature and its horrifying gaze. The air in the room grew heavy and cold, and a feeling of absolute dread washed over him. After what felt like an eternity, the cat finally broke the stare. It let out a low, guttural hiss that didn't sound like any animal he'd ever heard. Then, in a flash, it leaped off his chest, but instead of running out the door or jumping out the window, it sprinted directly towards the wall, and then it just vanished. It ran straight into the solid wall and disappeared as if it was never there. For a moment he just lay there, completely stunned, trying to process what he'd just witnessed. He was so terrified, he couldn't bear the thought of being alone in that house, not even for a second. They all huddled together in the living room for the rest of the night, lights blazing, as he recounted the story of the demonic-looking cat. Life tried to go back to normal after that, but the fear lingered. About a month later, he was telling Pamela the story again, reliving the terror of that night, and it was almost as if talking about it, acknowledging its existence, gave it power. Because right after he finished the story, they both saw it. Standing in the hallway, just at the edge of the light, was a shadow. It wasn't just a trick of the light. It had a definite form. It was a shadowy figure, about 3 or 4 feet tall, just standing there, watching them. It had no discernible features, just a void of darkness in the shape of a person. The moment they saw it, the same gut-wrenching dread that a dad felt with the cat filled the room. It was a pure, primal fear that told them they were in the presence of something that was not of this world. And it did not have good intentions. They didn't scream. They didn't run. They just stared, frozen in place. A silent understanding passing between father and daughter. They both saw it. They both felt its malevolence. That was the last straw. The weird feelings in the house, the cat, and now this shadowy figure, it was too much. Not long after that, the family packed up and moved. They just couldn't live in that house anymore, knowing what was lurking in its shadows. Interestingly, Pamela's brother never saw or felt a thing. It was like whatever was in that house was only interested in her dad, and by extension, the entity seemed to feed off her father's lifelong sensitivity to the paranormal. Even after they moved, the experiences didn't stop for him entirely. He spent his life trying to find answers, trying to understand why these things are drawn to him. The story of the house in Idaho remains the most terrifying chapter in his lifelong journey with the unexplained. A chilling reminder that sometimes, when you feel like you're being watched, you really are. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to follow for more true stories like this one. Stay safe out there.